Well, and from my side, talking to labs, and I just talked to a grower, a hemp grower the other day. It was actually last week. And I said, when you're buying your seeds, how do you know, like, what do you use? And he goes, well, I just, whatever the COA is. So it's delving into the labs. And of course, there's a lot of labs across the country, and, understanding the parameters around that and what exactly are the...
Hey guys, it's Mandi with Global Hemp Association. I wanted to say thank you so much for joining. I'm excited about the opportunity to build a relationship and connect this supply chain. I mean, after all, that's why we started the association. Our association was built on the foundation of connecting supply chain, building relationships, and helping you grow your business. Anyone from farmers, manufacturers, and distributors, people that are passionate about the supply chain, and those creating products selling into biofuels, plastics, textiles, construction, and building materials.
Hello, everyone. We're live. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. Please, if you do join, please stop in and say hello. Let Tim and I know that you're here. Tim, did you ever get Tim the Toolman Taylor?
All the time. It's how I know if people are paying attention and what generation you're from. If I say my name and there's nothing, then I know you're young. And if kind of your eyes pop a little bit, I know, okay, I get it. You've seen the show before.
I said this morning to somebody who I was interviewing, and they were like, Tim the Toolman? I was like, ha ha. Yes.
Yeah,
I love that show, though. I grew up watching that during the dinner hour every night.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then our kids with Tim Allen, and then he became an actor, and I got to watch him again with all his Christmas movies.
Yeah. That's awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me, and thank you everybody else for stopping in and saying hello. If you have any questions, I'm excited about today and excited about your experience. You've got 25 years in investment experience. Is that correct?
Correct.
It's a long time. Do you mind giving a little intro, Tim, about your background?
Yeah, I basically spent my whole life in finance. In my degree, I've done pretty much everything from being a loans officer. I was a broker for a number of years. I had my own private equity firm. I've worked for private equity firms. I was both public and private. I'm actually based in Canada and in Calgary, Alberta, and legalization came earlier here. So I worked for a private equity firm in the cannabis space very early on, probably now about 6 years ago, investing on both sides of the border. So we were probably a little bit earlier within the space and the knowledge around it than on the U.S. side because of, just our legalization and that sort of thing. And then, moved into the payment space. I worked for a big multinational for a lot of years, for about 10 years, investment firm, and then moved into the payment space now about 5 years ago. So, lots of different experience, my background that fits very well with compliance, payments, and what we're doing today, and understanding whether it's hemp, cannabis, CBD, et cetera, understanding all the different verticals.
Okay, so for those that are new to the space, right, it's something that comes up a lot, and I may be glitching a little bit. So if I am, I apologize. Are you seeing me glitch a little bit, Tim?
No, you look fine. Okay. You look good.
Okay. Good. Maybe it's just on my side. The common business, when I go out and I try to bridge this gap and, bring outside industry into the hemp industry, or bridge this gap to bring hemp into the outside industry, and say manufacturing, and we talk about the ability to market or gain banking, or I should say marketing. Tell me a little bit about what are some of the challenges in the banking space, and why is it still a challenge right now?
It's really around education and understanding that the space we're in that is very new, it's very complex, and it requires an awful lot of compliance, And I'll give you an example. I can move it to hemp as well, but I'll give you an example on the CBD space. as far as, from a compliance standpoint, there's so many regulations around it. So we have to ensure that products are safe. We have to ensure that COAs are read. Not all COAs are the same. So you have to then learn how to read 10, 15, 20 different types of COAs. And we're looking at, THC, we're looking at THCA, we're looking at Delta 8. There's so many things that we're looking at now. We're coming up with Delta 10 and,
THCO, THCV, THC.
Right. And you got CBG and CBD. And so you look at it from a banker's perspective and it is overwhelming and they have no idea. And to become educated within the space, and that's why we do a lot of consulting. In fact, I just did a review for a bank of a new hemp client. So we'll go in and we'll do all of those reviews for them. So we'll look at all their documentation, and then we have to look at licensing. We have to look at state licensing. We have to look at taxation. So it's just a lot of different moving parts, and then. Again, if you're on the CBD side, you have to look at health claims. CBD products can't claim to treat, cure, or prevent any illnesses. So you have those sorts of things you have to look at. And then you have to monitor a website on a minute-by-minute basis in case new products are added, health claims are added. So it takes a lot of technology. It takes a lot of a fair amount of manpower, but typically we use a lot of technology. We monitor all of our websites, like I say, on a minute by minute basis. We do a lot of consulting, but we look back at and this is when probably about 5 years ago, and when you look at the cannabis industry, for the first time in a lot of people's lives, and whether this be from a work experience, whether it be from hemp growers, whether it be from an investment perspective, this will probably be the first time somebody sees a new industry start and grow in their lifetime. Mm-hmm. Like what other, you go through and you just don't see those things happen. So, it's very exciting.
Soybeans were the last industrial crop when we talk like start to finish.
Yeah. Right. So we have a tremendous amount of opportunity here, but I think predominantly it just is, it's education. Okay. For a lot of people, and it will take time for that. And even, I can probably say, realistically, there's maybe 20 banks in the entire United States that I'm familiar with that are well educated within the space. And that's understanding they're taking banking, that are lending into the space, that really have a deep knowledge. And of those 20, there's probably 3 or 4 that are striving to be leaders in the space.
Okay. Well, cool. Well, I know that I'm working with 1 or 2 of them. And so I really and we work really close with you guys. So I have to give a shout out to your team. It's been incredible on on all levels, right? Understanding the payments, where money's coming in. They've been a great value add. So shout out to Ralph, who I talk to all the time. And then, okay, so somebody asked real quick, what are some of the things that we're going to be covering during our show today? Or during this hour, you had sent some things over: cashless ATMs, closed loop networks, blockchain, future of legalization and due diligence. So those are just a couple of things, right? I want to talk really quick before we jump into those. Sure. Money coming into the industry, right? There's all of this red tape that banks are having to go through and all these complications, but why did you guys jump in, and where is this real opportunity, right? Clearly the opportunity is there and the industry is not going away. So where are you seeing either that opportunity open up or money coming into the industry more free flowing?
So I think from an opportunity perspective, it does come from education. And so educating people. So as an example, we've been working with CBank for the last couple of years. And so for those of people that aren't familiar, CBank is the largest banking network education platform.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do a lot of talking, a lot of seminars on that, on education. And, I see the opportunity in the industry for experts in the space in different areas. So you look at, let's say, the banking, or let's just talk about investments for a second. And it's something that we're very familiar with. I'm particularly familiar with it. And, you have private equity funds that are coming into the space, and there aren't a lot. There's a few that are experts in the space. We see some very famous people that are familiar with the space. Snoop Dogg, it's well known as an example, has a private equity fund and that we're familiar with, et cetera, and that is invested in. And you need experts to understand the space because it takes an awful lot of capital. And whether you're a hemp grower, you're a manufacturer, you are, doing analysis, you're a lab, et cetera, you're starting out, we are working with a partner right now that is very interesting. That's looking at financing, products. They're financing inventory for helping people grow. And so, you have people that are experts in the space that understand safe ways to invest. You have, now banking institutions that are willing to invest to their clients because they need a track record. We have a very young industry. Mm-hmm. So if I'm a company, probably at best, my track record is maybe 3-4 years. So from a banking perspective, a lending perspective, there's a lot of risk involved in that. So if you don't understand the space to begin with, and you don't have a big track record, that can become very challenging.
Right. I have a question. I want to make sure I understand. When I say opportunity to invest in, are you saying that there's a lot of opportunity to invest in the education piece of the industry?
I think there's a lot of opportunity, Mandi, for the educated to invest into the industry. And so when I look at it, and I think, why is there a lack of investment? It's because of the lack of education.
Yes.
And I think there's a huge opportunity. I think I just saw the other day, as an example, hemp being made into a 2x4. And when you look at what's happened to the price of lumber recently, and I can't remember, I think the cost was 38 or 48% less. And you're going, okay, that makes sense. Building products, when you look at textiles, when you look at, we're all very familiar and concerned about our health these days, obviously with what's going on with COVID, stress, anxiety, all those sorts of things. So we're all trying to do things and look at things that are better for our bodies and helping us in different ways. So I think there's a lot of different areas to invest in, and whether it's hemp, whether it's dispensaries in legalized states, whether it's looking at the CBD market, there are lots of areas to invest in, and looking at places that are underserved. And we do also work with some very big marketing firms, and I think there's going to be some leaders. I think there's going to be consolidation in the space. But on the hemp side, which obviously you're very familiar with and we've been spending a lot of time with lately, I think it's very interesting that the hemp industry in particular hasn't, in my opinion, standardized. Oh, yeah. So there's, on a global basis, and we work both in the United States and internationally, there is no standards that are set. There's no global standards. There's no American standards. And so I think there's a huge opportunity there, because once you have standardization, you can really promote growth in a big way. Everybody's very comfortable with the products they're getting. We're definitely looking at investment in those areas of the market.
I was talking to somebody, just kind of side note, this last weekend at this conference we were at in North Carolina, the Southern Hemp Expo. And she was saying, it's one thing to have standards, but before standards have to be or can be really, defined, we've got to understand our value proposition for each of these components, from the plant, and what each of those look like. And I thought that was really interesting, even taking it one step back. And really, there are so many. I was talking to somebody else that's a processor, and he said, I have to also understand, what are each of these, pieces that I've now created, and which one is my main focus and which one's my waste or my byproducts, and each of those change based on what's processed and how far away the manufacturing facility is. And so I think that those really are, discussions that we need to be having more often.
100%. You have to be able to break things down. Yeah. And I think it was a conversation that we had that I was on with you. We have to break things down, and we're learning new things every day. And I can't remember, we were on a conference call, and one of the women was in the textile space. And I believe she was talking about growers in Colorado, and, for textiles, it being a certain elevation that produce the best hemp for textiles. And I'm going, well, I would never in a million years know that. And so you need, again, on the education side, to bring experts together. And like you say, what's the value proposition? It's, okay, what works in what industries? How many industries do we have? And you go back again to the testing labs, and you're like, okay, what are the things that are important to, whether it's, let's call it textiles, to building products, to, hemp CBD, to, all these different things that are available. And we continue to see more things like it's really, how big's your imagination?
Yeah.
And somebody's like, I wouldn't have thought of a 2x4. Do you know what I mean? And, we have the ability to take, let's call it these great plants, and create so many different things with them. And it's going to be an evolution. So it's going to be what's working today, but it will constantly be evolving. But people have to, I guess, in my opinion, know what they're getting. And we keep hearing that's a challenge today.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and again, the standards go back to what works in my mill. If we're talking textiles, what works in my mill, grade A, is going to be different than your mill, grade A, because the technology you have is different than mine, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's just what works. So I think understanding that. So how does that really affect the banking space, right? If we're talking about, or what I should say, we kind of talked a little bit about how it affects it, but where do you see changing or opportunities to move money into? How do we ease that flow of capital into the industry so that we can reduce cost and open up, processing facilities, and then get farmers to grow?
Again, I think it's finding these experts and people that have been around the longest and have had success. So you need, everything's rated on risk. That's what we do on a daily basis. It's how much risk is involved. So unfortunately, if I'm someone new and I come up with a great idea, I may need a partner that's experienced to help me move that great idea forward, because they have, let's call it, the backing, the experience, the maybe the know-how, et cetera. Because if I've been manufacturing textiles or building products for 4 years or 5 years or longer, the textile industry in hemp has been around since, the early 1900s, even longer than that. So that's not something that's new. We're all very aware of it. You can make shirts, you can make a million different things out of hemp. So we have a lot of experience in that. Now we're getting to a point where they're getting very precise as far as understanding and grading, let's call it the hemp. And I think that really needs to happen. So if you're new and you're kind of breaking into the space, it could be a little bit more challenging to find backers unless you have a really good, really unique idea and you have the background experience of being able to grow a new industry or a new product.
I couldn't agree more. What I hear you say is that we have to build a team and a team of credible experience with credible experience so that we can.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that that's something that really we need to pay attention to is we all have a great idea and inside of our echo chamber, we believe what we're doing, but how do we bridge that gap to this outside industry and understanding that the team is so important when we're looking to bring capital in. I actually had an investor one time say, I pay more attention to who's on the team than I do the product or timing.
Absolutely. And I mean, we work with people like Michael Patterson, who I'm sure you're familiar with, et cetera. And, global experts, in the space that have been around for a long time that, you can talk to about new products, new services, that sort of thing. And, we look to be innovators and, from the payment side, from helping financial institutions in bringing services within the industry.
Okay, so talk to me about future opportunities, blockchain, cashless ATMs. Where do they play a role in this space in the industry?
Well, cashless, I thought I'd talk about when we look at the payment space, it still remains very challenging unless you're on the CBD space. Within CBD, there's a number of financial institutions, payment processors that are processing for CBD. It is a little bit more challenging on the hemp side. And that, again, goes to people's understanding of it. Seeds are an issue because telling, a hemp seed from a cannabis seed, et cetera, is challenging. What exactly am I getting? What exactly am I processing? Because of course, it's against a lot of process on the cannabis side. And so we look at opportunities and ways to bring solutions that are compliant, that are legal. There's been a lot of talk recently, and we look at things that are let's say very questionable, and cashless ATMs are one of those things that are leaning more towards the illegal side of payments. They're very prevalent within the dispensary space for marijuana. And the problem with a cashless ATM is your bank just considers that a cash withdrawal from your bank account, where in fact you're actually buying a product, which is referred to as masking and concealing. So it becomes an issue when you're using a cashless ATM, and there's a number of articles out there that talk about it on a regular basis. We know the regulators are now looking at it. There was the Ease Technologies CEO pled guilty, as a matter of fact, to conspiracy to commit bank fraud.
I just sent a private chat. Just ignore it.
Yeah.
It's my notes to ask questions.
Yeah. And so, we look at bringing compliant solutions. So, we have an ACH solution that's completely compliant, and whether we're using that in the hemp side or a marijuana dispensary, we're constantly looking for, what is the compliant solution? Because, there's nothing worse. And people are very, when we have a new industry, people will go into, talk to an owner of a business and be very convincing. And the owner doesn't know that whatever that solution is compliant or it's not compliant. And then all of a sudden you're looking at it and, a month later, 2 months later, 6 months later, all of a sudden they're shut down. They've lost their payments. They may have lost their banking over it, et cetera. So, that becomes a big issue. So we try and work with, our partners in making sure that they don't, fall into any potholes that are out there, and make sure that, everything that they're doing is compliant. We think that, and going back, and I guess the other thing to talk about is why have all these, why do we have to jump through all these hoops? And of course, it's because of legalization. And, it's always a hot topic. It comes up, probably once a month, twice a month. I think unfortunately, consensus is we're still a long ways away from legalization, which is, and when I say a long ways, I'm thinking greater than 6 months away from legalization. Even if legalization, and a lot of people will say, well, 6 months, will say a year or even longer than that. And even if legalization happens, then we need regulation, which is going to take, another, let's call it 6 months. So, we're a long ways away. So as entrepreneurs, which this is an entrepreneurial industry, I think it's a cottage industry, we look for solutions to make our businesses grow. And that's natural. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And I know I talked to, which was ironic, probably one of the biggest CBD companies in the country, the CEO, a couple of weeks ago. And I was talking about cashless ATMs. I mentioned that they were illegal. And he goes, they're illegal? And I said, yeah. And if you're not kind of on the banking side, or depending what side of the pendulum you're on or the industry you're on, you've got all these people coming in and telling you, yeah, this is legal, this is legal, this is legal. And you're going to go, okay, well, they're reputable companies. They've got lots of businesses, et cetera. So it makes sense. Like, why would I not believe that person? Yet you've got, the Justice Department shutting down companies and pressing charges and sending people to jail. Right. So, there's a big concern there. This question that you sent through, what do I see as a solution for identifying seeds? So I am talking to labs. And so that's a great question, because I love the seed space. I think it's great. I think it needs help. I get calls on it all the time.
Well, and Tim, I get solutions presented all the time, right? Yeah. What is it that they are, what is that compliance piece that has to be met to make it even a sustainable solution or a solution to be considered?
Well, and from my side, talking to labs, and I just talked to a grower, a hemp grower the other day. It was actually last week. And I said, when you're buying your seeds, how do you know, like, what do you use? And he goes, well, I just, whatever the COA is. So it's delving into the labs. And of course, there's a lot of labs across the country, and, understanding the parameters around that and what exactly is the testing they use for seeds, and, how big is the test, et cetera. And so that's one of the things that I'm spending time on now is looking at that and talking to different labs and say, okay, I really am looking for a solution on the payment side. So if I can find some labs that are familiar doing it, et cetera, then, it would be a solution that I'd be very keen on helping with and providing, because I think there's a good opportunity there.
Awesome. Okay, now blockchain. Talk to me about blockchain.
Well, and I mentioned blockchain, and which is funny because I know I forgot yesterday when I sent this to you, so I sent it to you late last night, and it was more around cryptocurrencies. I say blockchain, and I sometimes use the terms interchangeably, unfortunately. And so again, we're seeing solutions within the stable coin. And if people aren't familiar with crypto or blockchain, whether it's, but again, it's a very convoluted system, I would refer to it as. And the reason for that is I go into a dispensary and instead of buying my marijuana with my credit card or debit card. I actually buy a cryptocurrency or a stable coin, and then that stable coin is used to purchase it. And then the dispensary owner now has a stable coin, and I have my product. But again, the bank has no idea what I've just purchased. So it kind of comes down to that whole masking and concealing. And you have to think of it when you're looking at the payment side. And this makes perfect sense. If you go in to make a transaction and the bank has no idea what you actually bought, odds are you've broken some law. It's a pretty simple way of looking at it is, you just
of intention, that act is.
And you're not, and you're right. You're not intending to do it. You're not aware because it's just something that it's a solution that's in front of you and you're not aware of it.
And cannabis is legal in Colorado. So why?
Yeah, exactly. I've just gone in.
Well, why wouldn't you? You can walk into Walmart and buy a vitamin. You can walk into, the store and buy a hammer made out of wood. Why couldn't you buy a hammer made out of hemp or something else out of product? Yeah.
And it just basically comes back to being in an industry that's new.
Yeah.
Right? Being an industry that's new, that has like so many legal regulatory loopholes that you have to jump through because you're looking at it from the perspective of on a federal level, it's illegal. On a state level, it's legal. In different states, your legalization is whether it's recreational, whether it's fully legal, whether it's medicinal, and we're going to have to deal with this until we get, full legalization on a federal level. And until that happens, we're just going to keep, people like workarounds. Again, everybody in this industry is an entrepreneur. It's not like some big industry. We haven't had big pharma really come into it. I don't think they will until legalization. And in a big way, but you've seen like big box retailers, obviously, they're very interested because it's a big industry and it's going to keep growing. Yeah. And we just want to keep providing solutions. Sorry.
As I was saying, consumers are calling for it.
Absolutely. You've got an industry growing by, arguably, 23, I think the last number I looked at, % on an annual basis, which is a huge growth rate. Wow. So it's something that, a lot of people are looking at.
Okay, so I look at blockchain as an awesome opportunity for the track and trace and the seed traceability, right? The blockchain more than the currency side or the crypto side. And I think that there's definitely it's funny. I went from having discussions when people say, like, what have I seen in the industry transition? Blockchain or the acceptance of blockchain in the agricultural space has definitely become a more regular conversation. Because of this traceability or trackability for products to end goods. How much are you seeing on the carbon credit side? How much are you guys doing in that space?
Well, we're looking at it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. It's something that I guess from an investment perspective, we're probably more interested in it. I don't think when you look at carbon credits that very few people have figured out carbon credits at all, that they even exist. We've had lots of conversations where really you can get carbon credits. And so I think that, again, that's the education part of the industry is here's something that has a huge benefit, has a huge value, like the tremendous amount of value that people don't understand. And until we kind of do more education, and again, I go back to the standardization and I look at it from, more groups such as yourself. I look at hemp exchanges. I look at, national hemp exchanges that, producers can go to, buyers can go to, and they know the products they're getting. There's a standardization to it. There's the ability for people to interact and really understand, and you'll be not just trading products, but the carbon credits will show up on an exchange basis, because on a global perspective, when you look at governments, carbon credits are a big deal. They're probably a bigger deal to the governments than they are to the producers, believe it or not.
Oh, I think we have just started. Not only are we just scratching the surface of the cannabis and hemp industry and opportunity, but we are just scratching the surface of the opportunity around the carbon credits and the value of those credits, right? It's, they increase as penalties increase. And I see penalties for, bad actors are just coming down the pipelines, and the US is just a little slower at picking up on that compared to the global picture, right? So many people are starting to really focus on the.
And you'll probably see Europe lead at that.
Oh yeah, hands down. They are for the most part, right? That's what they are doing right now.
Yeah, they're just further ahead. They have a bigger understanding of it. It's something that they talk about far more than we do in North America.
Oh man, yeah. Well, and that's what's exciting. They're also the ones leading I shouldn't say leading in some aspects of the hemp industry. They have done a very, very good job at it, right? Yeah. And on the exchange side, right, being able to understand, where is market going? If we look at some of these more advanced markets, the exchanges are where they've headed. And so.
Absolutely. And it's going to be the direction that the whole industry goes as far as, when you get, and I look at it, you look at it as any commodity. Yeah. And, I grew up around grain and wheat in particular and farming and that sort of thing. And, there's wheat boards all over the place. And I mean, it's a huge commodity, a huge traded commodity. And hemp is going to be the same way. And the beautiful thing about it is it's not just a static, I'm growing it in Colorado or I'm growing it in Kansas or wherever. I could ship it anywhere I want to ship it. I can have global buyers. I can have local buyers. You can source products, you can source seeds, you can, having all those abilities for the industry is going to be enormous. And that is what will take the industry to the next level. It will take some time for that to happen. And again, it comes down to, and I know I use this word a lot, but some sort of standardization, bringing more standards to the industry. And once you have a larger exchange, that is for sure one thing that they'll bring. We look at it when we're talking to exchanges from the compliance side, and bringing compliance and having as I mentioned, whether it's lenders, whether it's that want to lend into the space for producers, it's not unlike any other commodity. I look at the farming industry and how much money goes into it, which is absolutely enormous. And it's going to be the same for the hemp industry. You look at, the ability to forward sell your crops at a specific price. You look at factoring that's going to be available. You look at inventory, being able to borrow on your inventory, et cetera. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities within this industry going forward. And there will be a lot of money invested in this industry, a lot of money invested in this industry.
Okay. So, because I agree with you, and I feel like it's waiting. I mean, I'm starting to see a lot come in, and a lot of people that have been in the investment space are starting to say, I thought this was going to be harder to raise capital than it is proving to be. So there is definitely capital coming into the space. You had mentioned earlier, seeds really are where your personal interest is, right? If you were giving advice to other groups who may not be educated about the industry and say, I've got this capital, where do I put it, or where should we be paying attention? What's your advice to them? Where do you think you're ready to receive that capital?
So I like seeds because there's a big opportunity for seeds in the payment space.
Okay.
So that's where I look at it. And so I look at where our opportunities are, and I see a big opportunity in that space. And it's something it's just something that is a personal interest to me. It's this has to be a simple solution. And it doesn't seem to be a simple solution, which really kind of bothers me a lot. It's like, I don't understand it. So, kind of delving into it, it's like, well, if I'm going to buy seeds, somebody has to tell me what they are. And, we're very familiar with COAs and the labs and that sort of thing. So just, working on that is good. If I'm investing in the space, again, I'm looking at growth industries, and I'm probably, hemp space specifically, probably on the for sure on the manufacturing side. And looking at what has hemp done to create products that are as good as existing products. And let's just use the 2x4 example, just because I recently saw it, and going, okay, I'm not going to disrupt the industry, the lumber industry. I'm not going to disrupt it, but I'm going to add a product to it. Right?
A little tiny
that is, as good, less expensive. We've seen whole homes being built using hemp. I think there's a lot of opportunity on the building product side. I think there continues to be a lot of opportunity on the textile side. And textiles is big because it's such a broad, we use textiles as a word, and I think some people think textiles and they think clothing and that sort of thing. But it's huge. Whether it is clothing, whether it's rope, whether it's carpeting, whether it's there's just a million different areas that you can go into when you're looking at the textile industry. So I do look at it as a manufacturing play, and that's probably where the most money will go. But there will also become some very large farming opportunities within the space as well.
Okay. I'm excited about becoming or building out the investment around, I shouldn't say investment, the manufacturing and processing, over the next 10 years. I've seen where opportunity is, and I feel like it's just this, I almost want to slap people upside the head and say, you guys, we have this tool, you get to get on board before everybody else is, let's hurry and do this, right? But there's still this concern on the investment side for, what about the farmers? How do we fix this chicken and egg? And how do I know that we're going to have supply on the manufacturing side? Can you speak to that a little bit, or what?
Well, but that kind of comes back to creating an exchange.
Yes.
And because if I'm a farmer, and so again, I go back to commodities, and it could be grain, it could be cotton, it could be, oranges, it could be anything. Yes. And I know that I can sell my crop for X. I know what my inputs are. It's a mathematical equation for the hemp growers to be able to secure what they're doing. I have a very close friend, as an example, that has a beautiful number of greenhouses that grows marijuana, and he forward sells everything. Right. So it's not taking the risk. It's having the insurance or the assurance that I'm growing something that I can sell. Because if I'm growing something that's not needed, then I've got a huge problem. And if you see the demand start to grow, then we'll see more acres converted over to hemp.
Totally.
Right. It's just one of those things. And the ability to, in certain areas grow multiple crops makes it, again, very attractive, because, not only am I growing one crop, I'm, might be growing two or possibly three. So, that's something that, again, becomes very exciting. But, it comes down to being able to secure what you're growing.
Awesome. Great comment right here. Textiles, packaging, and paper are involved in every industry. So when we talk about what we're processing for and what industries we're going into, these are massive, massive industries, and opportunity. And I haven't heard any farmer say, no, I'm good. I don't want a new crop, or I'm not interested in adding a healthy crop or a good rotation crop.
Right.
They equally are hungry to grow and to bridge this gap.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, these are really good points, because you look at it, and I know, and I'm just like papers, hemp papers all over the place, hemp straws I've seen, you name it, and you can create it. And it's interesting. Let's just call it on the straw side, because everybody's moved away from plastic straws. And, we have a customer that does hemp straws. And that just made me think of it. And when it came, I'm like, hemp straws, and but they're creating straws out of paper now, right? Or people are carrying around metal straws, and there's just a million different areas that people can go into when they're looking at this industry. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I think that I didn't even know getting into this. You think, people say all the time, well, what's your background? And is somebody asked me yesterday on an interview, is where I started where I thought I would be, right?
Right.
Or what was the projection, and what does it look like later on? And I said, well, I can tell you where I want to be, but I can also tell you the only thing I know is it's not going to go that way, because I didn't realize how much opportunity was there. And it unfolded some passions of mine that I didn't know I had, because it has proven to be a solution for reshoring manufacturing. It's a solution for, or a piece of those solutions, right? It plays a role in all of these pain points that we have, that also brings a solution to each of those pain points. And so it's been, I always tell people, what is it you're interested in, and invest there, because hemp is part of that.
when you look at the Hemp Association, are your members kind of split 50-50 between growers and manufacturers, or how's the association made up? Do you have more of one group moving towards being part of an association than another group, or is it fairly evenly split?
So I actually approached the industry with the intention of going after the manufacturing side, because there were so many farming organizations, and I didn't want to compete for acreage for those few farmers we had. But what has evolved is I've started to provide support to other associations through our content.
Right.
And now we're more of a split.
Right.
Yes.
So it really, and you get those concerns from both sides, I guess. From the one side, you get a concern from the grower saying, I'm not sure where I'm going to be able to sell my crop. And you get a concern from the manufacturer saying, I don't know where I'm going to get my product from.
Yeah. Yeah. It's this chicken and egg. And this is really where, we talk about like the education. You've brought that up multiple times. That's my goal is, in bridging this gap. Someone asked me a few years ago, well, what are you going to do about it? Well, this is it. If I can create a platform, if we have a place where both farmers and manufacturers can go and say, just like this exchange, I think the exchange is brilliant on the legitimacy of this top of funnel, community that we have. Now, who's ready to enter that exchange? Who's actually processing? Who's moving product versus who's learning and educating and, interested in?
And I think that's what's required. Exactly what you're doing, Mandi, is you need large associations that are trusted, that people can go to, that are filled with experts, that, regardless of the question, if we don't have the answer, as an example, it's, like in all likelihood, somebody we know will have the answer to that. And it's groups, and you just mentioned you were just at a conference, and having those conferences and people coming together, because it's going to take, time. It's going to take a lot of education. And when I say education, it's so broad, which is, unfortunate. It's whether it's in the banking sector, whether it's, governments, whether it's individuals, whether it's, even manufacturers, because I want a product and I need a certain type of hemp to create my product. It's going to be, with the labs, it's a really broad comment when I say education, because we are entering in a new industry in a lot of different ways, and creating that and having places to go where you get expert advice, or just people that you can talk to about what you're doing and sharing, I think is brilliant from that standpoint. You can never have too much information, and what you're doing is and getting good information and trusted. And I did have a comment. You do have smaller groups, and I talked to one. You have smaller groups that are used to dealing with each other, and that's where they are. So I think what, in some areas, what we have is you've got, seed producers, you've got manufacturers, and you've got growers, and they've been kind of working together for, let's call it 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever the length of time is. And they're very comfortable because they know the products they have, they know what they're producing, they know the quality, those sorts of things. But we need to grow the industry. We need to broaden that out, because otherwise you're going to have like just these niche pods all over the place. But to grow a massive industry, you kind of need to break out of that. And that also allows, the industry to grow, and it allows the economics to get better, I think, too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I second everything that you said. I want to encourage everybody, I guess, real quick, if you have interest to join the Hemp Hallway or join the Global Hemp Association, you can request an invite to our community where we have all different types of events, and all of our meetings like these are recorded and published on our Hemp Hallway, as well as transcribed notes from the different meetings. Then the cool part, Tim, that you can get in and actually connect and chat with different people. So if you see somebody online that you want to talk to, you can actually get in and communicate with them. Right on hemphallway.com or globalhempassociation.org. They take you to the same platform. Somebody else just mentioned here that we need a low barrier to market for products, something like toilet paper or cardboard manufactured to really stoke the hemp industry fire. And I agree, it's these low products, right? As you were talking, I was just thinking, what else can we do to bridge that gap or to educate and move this forward? And I always used to host these trap shooting events. Wouldn't it be awesome if we could do some trap shooting events with hemp guns? Bringing products to market that
I was pretty sure you meant trap shooting when you said trap shooting, but it kind of threw me off. I do have to admit, trap shooting events. Okay.
Yes, they're so fun. And they're the best, in my opinion, to break those barriers to start moving conversation. So that's actually how I started this.
Yeah, any type of really high adrenaline activity like shooting guns is pretty good at stirring conversation. But I agree with that as far as and you talk about toilet paper or cardboard, and then somebody should zip out and talk to Amazon, because they're the the largest user of cardboard on the planet, I think, right now.
I think there's something that is calling for more, plant-based or a different biomass for cardboard boxes from Amazon. Yeah. But yeah, I agree. Even if we hit 10% of their production, that's thousands of acres and multiple facilities.
Well, and at the end of the day, as well, I mean, this is when we talk of all the benefits, right? When we talk about the plant-based, when we talk about, doing things that are good for the planet, which we all do, we talk about carbon credits, we talk about, eliminating waste, those sorts of things. And I mean, here's an opportunity that people have. I think when we look at, education as well, it's not just education within the industry, it's education outside of the industry. Yeah. And again, we have some great merchants that we deal, of course, because predominantly I'm in payments, that have hemp stores, and people just becoming more, let's call it, eco-friendly. And I'm not, making any kind of eco statements or anything like that. But, we want to be concerned about our planet and what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. We want to support local.
And consumers are asking for it, right? The consumers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Products. Yeah,
absolutely. We all want those sorts of things, and I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. And I agree wholeheartedly with comments that are made. Is low barriers, more manufacturer, more initiatives, and I think that you'll see. I know we talk to investment groups all like every day, all the time. And it's something that they're going to get a lot more comfortable with, and there are some very large groups out there, and I think the opportunity again for some consolidation will be big, and I would foresee. I think in the near term, in the next 12 months, there being some larger plays within the space, and those being very large, multi-$100 million deal transactions that will take place.
And are those, do you think, going mostly towards the processing or like fully vertically integrated?
Vertically integrated. Yeah. You're going to see a lot more, just like what's happened in the marijuana space. You'll see vertically integrated hemp producers. They're going to be controlling their own destiny.
Okay.
Right?
So I've got a question then, because this is something that I question or butt up against when we talk about the exchange, right? If growers are working on a vertically integrated, or not growers, manufacturers or money, wherever this end product is coming from, whoever's controlling it, everything is going to be vertically integrated from seed to cradle or end product. How are they using the exchange, or how does that?
So think you'll always have excess of something.
Okay.
Not to mention, I believe, and just like everything else. So if you look at which is interestingly enough, farmland, whether you're growing in, Oregon, or whether you're growing in Kansas, or what, everything has a different outcome, different quality. So I may, as an example, be a vertically integrated grower, and I know my product, but I'm going, hey, you know what? I can arbitrage. I can sell my product over in Europe for more money, buy their product for less money, and still manufacture it. So I think the exchange it's just part of the industry. It's no different. I mean, when you look at vertical integration, there's probably a little bit less of it in some commodities, but lots of commodities are vertically integrated.
Yeah.
And they still have exchanges. So it's just part of it. But you'll see, because if I become really big as a vertically integrated company, I'm going to be overproducing something.
A perfect example is textiles, right? You get these big companies with big capital that are coming in that are going to have a byproduct of herd or dust that is the majority, 80% of the plant. Right. Right. And so what do we do with that? And what does that look like if that's the byproduct or that secondary product? And I think that is, like you said, where this commodity becomes, or the exchange. And I hadn't thought about it like that. So I'm glad to.
Well, you take dust, you look at the lumber industry, you take the dust and you turn it into particle board.
Right.
Right? Like, what are we going to do? We're going to take all this dust, we're going to glue it together, and we're going to create something out of it. Or like, there's a million different things that people. I do not have that kind of ingenuity. I'm not that. I'm kind of creative, but not that kind of creative. Well, and there's guys that have been doing it for years and years that'll have it all together.
I think that's where this value chain we figure out, right? As the innovative. Wow, I'm struggling with words again. Well, people are becoming, our engineers and our kids and our architects get their hands on it. These guys that are really going to take the products to market and say, wait, I have this plastic water bottle. Why not make the plastic bottle or the shoe or whatever it is? We are just scratching the surface. So I'm interested to see where that value change shifts, or that proposition shifts as the market matures.
Exactly. And the exciting thing about it, as I mentioned earlier, is here's an industry that we get to watch from the beginning and see it grow. And so, it's something that we get to see for years and years, and it'll be one of the only industries that, probably, I'll ever. I mean, you could look at computers. a little bit depending on your generation, how old you are. But, it's exciting because it's fairly rare to see an industry start and then the growth of it and where it ends up. And I think there's, we're just scratching the surface as far as where things are going to go.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and I'm excited. Like, even just as you say that, it makes me giddy because it's the whole reason I jumped in. I really am eager to create opportunity. My selfish reason in doing this is for my children, for not only opportunity and career, but an opportunity to continue to be around. Yeah. Our Earth's going to eject us all off if we're not careful. And so just things like that I didn't realize were passions of mine until I got into hemp and realized that hemp is a solution for some of the things we face on a daily basis.
Well, and, again, I think the associations are really, where to go because you need expertise, you need groups, you need, think of it as your study group, whatever, your peer group, and having a great group that you can, kind of go to that gives you the expertise, the experts you can talk to in an industry like this. And there may be somebody out there right now that we don't know that's listening to this, or you find next week that goes and says, hey, you know what, we're manufacturing toilet paper, we're manufacturing cardboard. And then you hook them up with a marketing firm that gets them into Amazon. And then, that's the way the industry is going to go.
Well, and that's exactly the point, right? Is we are not focused on just farming or just marketing or just organic or any one of these pieces, right? It is anybody that touches the supply chain, and hemp is so broad.
Absolutely.
And really that's where it becomes exciting for me. When I hear somebody say, I watched one of your videos and then it intrigued me enough to watch a few more, and now I know enough to go to someone else and spark the conversation. Like, right. Now it's working, right? Because now they've got a tool and a resource to now bring products to market or whatever it is. So I welcome anybody to join. I would love to have you, Tim. I'm super excited to have you on. I love that you get Tim Taylor, Tim the Tool all the time, because it's the first time, every time I see your name, I have to slow down and say, wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
You've been brand
Well, thanks, Mandy. I appreciate you inviting me on. Anytime you need anything, just obviously reach out, let me know.
Well, and thank you guys so much for all your support to the association and to
Absolutely.
You guys have been fabulous.
It's important. It's important, and it's going to keep growing, and we're excited to be part of it.
It's rewarding to me to have you guys as teammates or as partners, because it is trusted. So anybody that is listening or has questions, Tim and his team, Ralph and Tim, are fantastic. So please reach out anytime. Tim, how real quick do people get in touch with you?
You can email me tim.taylor, Taylor, at greenlightpayments.com. I know you're typing it, or you can call me directly. My direct line is 403-470-3937.
Okay, perfect. You're awesome. Well, thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Maddie. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Yep. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with Doug Fine to talk about the farming and hemp farming. So we'll see you then.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
Sign off for now. See you later.